What's going on, guys? Happy Tuesday to you. I think it's Tuesday, day 547 of this quarantine. I hope everybody's doing well. Today, I wanted to bring you another podcast that we're doing, and today it's my good friend and assistant strength and conditioning coach of the Boston Bruins, Ken Whittier. Ken and I work together before he went to the Bruins, and he is the reason why I feel as though I'm up and walking and able to walk with a walker. I gained a lot of progress, and I give him a lot of respect. So he just joined, so I'm going to try to pop him on here. Just bear with me 1 second. Hope everybody out there is doing well.
Am I upside down, James?
Yeah, you're upside down, Ken.
Sorry about that. Hold on. I'm just fixing my, I gotta get calibrated here.
It's all good. Take your time.
I'm not very technically savvy, as you can tell.
I know that, but it's okay.
Now, I put you in my pencil holder. Can you see my face?
Oh, yeah, you're good.
Okay, good.
Oh, my God.
I don't want it to be obstructed at all.
Once you came on here, the viewership went up by 500. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
from 0 to 5. There you go.
we got to get you to be on here more often. So,
yeah, I don't know about that.
Thank you for joining me and agreeing to do this. I know you are really busy with the Bruin stuff, and then you're getting married pretty soon.
Yeah.
A lot of
Fingers
plans
crossed
with that.
it still happens, yeah.
So, why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself, who you are, how you got into fitness, what you're doing now, type of thing, and then we'll just go from there.
Sure. Yeah, as James said, I work for the Boston Bruins as a strength conditioning coach, and this is my second year. Obviously, we're on hold currently, but before then, I worked at a gym called Mike Boyle Strength Conditioning, which is, been around for 20 plus years and is this world-renowned strength conditioning facility. And fortunately, being a local guy, I'm from Waltham. That gym's in Woburn, and I applied for an internship probably 8 years ago now at this point, and a junior in college, got the internship, finished at UMass Amherst, and then had been working there ever since until I got this new opportunity with the Boston Bruins. But I've just been very fortunate to be able to sort of apprentice and work under some of the leading minds in strength conditioning, like Mike Boyle and now Kevin Neild for the Boston Bruins. And so I've been just really fortunate, and it's just been good timing for me, and I've gotten really lucky. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. This is technically my second official job if you don't include the janitor job I had in high school. But no, I've been in strength conditioning the last 8 years with Mike Boyle and Kevin Neild, so it's been a lot of fun. I've met a lot of amazing athletes and clients. James, you're a big part of that, and so very proud of you and everything you've accomplished. And I feel very excited to be on here, whether it's 5 people or 50 or 500 or nobody, just talking with you. So every time I learn something.
Guys, I paid him to say that, so don't worry. The check's in the mail. Actually, you'll get it at your wedding. So,
man, listen. I've been waiting for you to pay me for a long time now, James.
So, how did you get into fitness? Did you grow up, really into fitness, and then you just decided as you got older, that's something I want to do, or?
Yeah, no, I really discovered fitness after I got my shoulder surgery sophomore year in high school. I'm a 3-sport athlete, not a particularly good one, which was a good segue into getting into sports on the other end, trying to optimize other people's abilities and performance and futures. But personally, no, never really a stellar athlete, but was always really into it and wanted to find ways to sort of optimize that. And again, playing baseball through overuse or whatever, injured my shoulder, got surgery my sophomore year. And so I was rehabbing at just a local physical therapy office, and my insurance only covered so many sessions. And so I was sort of on my own after 8 weeks, which is bizarre, thinking I went through this, labral surgery on my shoulder, as a high schooler who has no appreciation for rehab or training or any of that. And so I was kind of just thrown into the fire and had to learn on my own. And fortunately, at Waltham High School, Rick Vidham was my phys ed teacher, and he had been for my entire life. He was with me in elementary school, middle school, and high school. He sort of followed me. He wasn't following me. Our just paths kind of aligned that
Yeah.
way. And he was a former power lifter. And so he was really into kettlebells and functional training and knew of Mike Boyle and Eric Cressy and those guys. And, just talking with him, I got into those trainers and that type of training, more powerlifting based, and sort of also rehabbed on my own under his oversight. And yeah, learned a lot about strength conditioning and how to mess it up and mess people up myself mostly.
So what you're really saying is that you're a former meathead.
I know I don't look like a former meathead, but I got into powerlifting, and that sort of carried me through until freshman year of college. And it was a really good opportunity for me to compete in something, because I was an athlete, not good enough to play at UMass Amherst. So I started powerlifting, and that was fun to compete because, again, relatively speaking, I was strong for my body weight, nothing incredible, but it just gave me an opportunity to compete. And after getting injured and kind of getting sick and tired of doing that and having to be so rigid in what I was doing, I sort of I wanted to learn more about how to optimize other people's performance. And so that's what I got into after, my sophomore year in college at UMass. And then I got introduced to Mike Boyle and Eric Cressy and those guys, and read a bunch. And I bought Mike's DVDs. And then eventually junior year, I decided, well, what the heck? I don't really have any experience other than being a kinesiology major and reading all these blogs and strength conditioning, continuing education resources. But why don't I just give it a shot and apply for an internship? And sort of the rest is history.
That's so awesome, and I'm so thankful, that you started working there. And for the people that don't realize this, I never grew up in fitness. I was probably the furthest thing from fitness. And about 6 years ago is when I discovered fitness, and I lost a bunch of weight. But I was working out at a commercial gym, and my former boss at the time was going to Mike Boyle Strength Conditioning, and he said, "Hey, James," he goes, "I've seen all the progress you've made, at the commercial gym. Why don't you go to Mike Boyle Strength Conditioning?" And I heard about it, and I'm like, I don't know, professional athletes go there. And but one thing led to another. And why don't you tell them what Jason had told you? Because I think it's kind of a funny story that people will get a kick out of, how we first met and how you found out that I had cerebral palsy.
Well, I found out from you that you had cerebral palsy, and I don't exactly know how he described what it would be like to train with you, or who I would be working with, but I think he just mentioned that he's got a buddy who, I don't even know if he mentioned if you were dealing with any sort of affliction, whether it was injury or a disability.
I
or
don't
whatever.
think so.
He just, and it was good. It was a good way for me to, you go in open-minded, and sort of no matter what happens, you're going to find a way to train that person. But I never like to be ill-prepared. And so I always tell a story also of a client that I trained, Marie Tominsky, who was over 400 pounds. And Bob Hansen, Mike's business partner, when he connected me with Marie, I hadn't spoken to her. She was going to come to the gym, and he told me that she was nursing an ankle injury. And so when a woman walked in who was over 400 pounds, I was, again, felt very ill-prepared. But in both cases, it was a really good opportunity and challenge. And no matter what, you just had to sort of learn by doing, and be honest and forthcoming with that person. Like, hey, listen, I maybe don't have experience training, a certain type of client, but I'm certainly willing to try my best. And again, if this is sort of out of my lane and not within my scope of practice, I'm always willing to tell you what to do and refer you out to someone who knows better. But I think that, in doing that, in tackling those types of challenges, you realize that there's tons of things that you can do, and you still follow the same system. even though I'm working with or have worked with James, who has cerebral palsy, or anybody who is handicapped or has a disability or even overweight or has a serious injury, 10 times out of 10 or 99 out of 100, you're always going to be able to train that person. You just have to use your system and have a system that you can adjust, whether it's making it harder using progressions or making it easier using regressions. But I think that if you start with your template and your system and you work backwards, you'll find something to fill the hour. And we found, a lot of ways to challenge and fill the hour, and even more than that, ways that were effective and worth exploring. So, I'm glad that he introduced us in that way, but it would have been nice for me to be better prepared. For sure.
Yeah. So basically what had happened was I just came into the gym in my electric wheelchair, and Jason was like, hey, James, meet Ken, Ken, meet Jason, or the other way, meet James, and that's kind of how it all started. And we just literally took things and threw it against the wall and kind of figured it out as we went from there. And I think one point I want to hit on, and I think you'll agree, Ken, is I think why our relationship as athlete and coach worked out so well is because, Ken would say to me, hey, James, I'm thinking this. What do you think about this? Does this hurt? And we had open lines of communication the whole entire time, and as I got a little bit more experience into fitness, Ken learned to trust me, and I'd be like, Ken, you know what? I want to try this. What do you think? And we just bounce things off of each other. And like I said, to open this thing, I give Ken a lot of credit for getting me to where I am today and giving me a foundation of not only to progress myself, but to also help other people as well. So why don't you speak from a coach's standpoint, how important you feel communication is?
Well, I think it's huge, and it sounds very commonsensical, and sometimes I'm confused as to how people don't communicate or over communicate more often. I just feel like you can mitigate, risk and prevent so many injuries, training related injuries that should never happen, just by talking to the person. And I think that's number one, because when you're talking about training, your goals of training, number one, are to do no harm. Number two, to make that person more resilient. And then number three, to improve performance. And none of those happen unless you're communicating and asking questions. And so it needs to be a collaboration. There needs to be a back and forth dialogue, and that needs to happen often. And as you go, the person that you're training, your client, can be a little bit more self-sufficient and autonomous. And you can establish, okay, I've asked a lot. They know what I expect. I've set a standard, so they can come to me when they have a problem if they feel pain during an exercise. But I think that out of the gate, you need to establish a line of communication and be very clear with each other. Because again, the number one rule is do no harm, and make sure that, the exercises that you're doing are productive for them, and they're not getting hurt, or it's just what you're doing is effective. And so you don't really know that until you ask. And you want to make sure beyond that, when someone's doing an exercise, that they're doing it correctly and they're getting that desirable adaptation out of that. So I don't really know you're feeling it the right way. It might look proper. It might look like you're doing it correctly, optimally, but I don't really know that unless you tell me. I remember training my brother, and he comes to mind. But I distinctly remember he was doing a stretch and it looked perfect. And I was like, Colin, where do you feel that? It was like a hip flexor stretch, and he felt it in his other hamstring or his lower back. Like, Jesus. And no matter what I said, if it was a shoulder stretch, he felt it, somewhere else that was like totally seemingly unrelated. So I think what matters most is that, you communicate, and the client understands that the reason you're communicating is because you're trying to make sure that they have the best experience possible, and that you have their best interests, and you want to make sure that they don't get injured. And, again, they benefit from training with you. So it's really important that you communicate. I find that even at the highest levels, people under communicate, and I just don't think that's worthwhile.
No, definitely not. And can you talk about what some of your challenges were as as a coach of training me, were you a little bit fearful in the sense of, okay, I have this kind of idea, but I don't necessarily want to bring it to him, especially when we first met, because you you didn't know my personality, you didn't know how receptive I would be to things, and just from an overall like technique thing, did you um, encounter any challenges that really made you go home and think at night, or really like go pick Mike's brain or some Kevin's brain, somebody else's brain at the gym to say, hey, you know what? I have James. We're trying to do this exercise, and how do I get him to do it based on his challenges?
Yeah, well, that's a really good point. It sort of ties in nicely to the communication question, that communication transcends, the athlete coach. It needs to go beyond that. It needs to include, as many people as you need. So for me, with split squats, for example, or training James in general, I again was very green to it and sort of committed to training you without knowing what I was dealing with and what you were capable of doing. And it turned out that you were capable of much more than I anticipated and you may have anticipated. But with that said,
Absolutely.
I really wasn't comfortable prescribing certain exercises. And so John Pala, fortunately, who's a physical therapist at Mike Boyle Strength Conditioning, had some experience working with a disabled, handy-capable population. And so he was able to provide some different interventions and regressions or variations of exercises that I normally would program. So the first one comes to mind. We were trying to find a way to do a split squat, and I can't remember what you were supporting yourself with, but it was very makeshift. And so he set us up using the rings, where holding on to the rings, they were at different heights, with your arms being able to access different ranges of motion, and you were able to execute a split squat, and it looked really good, much better than I was able to come up with. And so, you sort of bounce ideas off of people, and you ask for help when you need it. And fortunately for me, I'm in a really good network where people are open to that and want to collaborate and are really smart. So, yeah, the next one that comes to mind, James, is felt like I was banging my head against a wall trying to figure out a way to, sort of challenge you in walking or introduce walking. And I had you holding on to everything, holding my hands, holding your wheelchair, holding the freaking med ball
This was
rack.
genius right here.
And
This was genius. We
I
still
wish
use
I
this
had even
today.
thought of I don't know who came up with it, you or Craig Seidenglantz, your trainer now, but having you walk on the treadmill and just holding on to the railings, like that's a no-brainer. But it didn't dawn on me that you could even do that. And so I think there's an endless amount of exercise prescriptions or selection that we could have capitalized on that we didn't, just because there's so many moving parts. And if you don't collaborate enough and ask questions, you don't get to experience those. So I guess the takeaway is that try things, be conservative, but don't be afraid to ask questions to your client and to other people around you who might have more experience.
Exactly, and I don't think we hit upon it, but that thing that Ken had us first walking on was a med ball cart from Perform Better. We literally just saw the med ball cart. We started throwing him off, and he goes, "You're gonna walk with this," and that was my walker for probably the next 6 months. And when we did the handicapable fitness walk, we actually brought the med ball cart down to the track so I could walk around the track. So that was pretty inventive. So if there's any coaches out there, look at your med ball rack. Um,
Yeah.
so so let me ask you this, and for I'm not asking for me, but what did you get both personally and professionally from working with a person with a disability?
Um, I, of course, you can imagine how fulfilling that relationship would be, working with somebody who has a disability who maybe otherwise wasn't training and exercising, and you can help them access that world and explore certain things that they never would, and explore their own fitness and try to improve and enhance their own fitness where they otherwise wouldn't be able to do that, or just haven't in the past. And so obviously that was really fulfilling. But um, I think that no matter what, James, again, going back to Marie or training you, those were two areas that I was really green with, and I didn't have a lot of experience, and it forced me out of my comfort zone, and it forced me to problem solve. And so overall in my career, whether I worked with middle school athletes or, handicapable clients or, excuse me, overweight clients, it again forced me out of my comfort zone and forced me to problem solve and learn about things that I wouldn't otherwise learn. And I think the best way to learn, at least for me, is learn by doing. And I'm very hands-on in my learning. And so that was a really incredible experience that, was afforded to me because I worked with you. And so I'm very thankful that I did. And it's opened a lot of really amazing doors. And most of all, we sort of together got to explore what you could accomplish
Yep.
and see how far you could advance. And I think that people who are handicapped, disabled, who maybe don't exercise or work out just because they don't have the means to, or really don't know where to start, don't appreciate how much they can actually improve. And I think
Absolutely.
you're a great example of how much you can really improve and how high the ceiling really is. And it's much higher than you could ever imagine. And so it's definitely worthwhile to explore. And, whether you have someone in person that you can work with or, remotely like yourself, I think you just got to start, and through trial and error, you'll figure it out. But it's definitely been a really fulfilling journey.
And I think you know what,
Not a
we
good time
both,
for me to cough. I apologize.
it's all good. We
I haven't talked
we
this long consecutively in a while. So.
we both really learned from each other, honestly, because Ken is the type of person where, like he said, he's very hands-on. He'll go home, he'll watch videos, not just in my case or Marie's case or any of his other clients' case, or really any of his other clients as well. He'll go and he wants to be better. And the thing is, when we would encounter a problem, he would, do endless amounts of research to figure it out and be like, hey, you know what? We need to make this happen, which in turn made me better because I was like, if this guy's putting in all this effort, I better match his effort. And, I say it all the time. Even to this day, it drives me in my training because I think of Ken and all the other people that have invested time, effort, belief in me. So as I'm out there doing all this stuff, I think of them, so definitely communication, and I consider myself very fortunate to be in the cluster of people that I've been able to be exposed to. So you
Well, we're
already
very
kind of
fortunate to have worked with you and very proud of you and everything you've accomplished and continue to accomplish. So keep up the good work. You're an
well,
inspiration.
thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. And I think you already answered it, but if there's a fitness professional out there that you know either is curious about working with a handicapable athlete, or they might be they might have a case roll through their gym doors when it opens, what if they want to grow professionally or get better, why should they take on that challenge of working with that said person?
Well, I think just back to like the personal development side of that, it's, without thinking about your future and the doors it may open, just thinking about like, how you can improve and again, achieve self-improvement and development. And so I think for those reasons and just learning to problem solve and be adaptable no matter who you're working with, whether again it's a handicapable client or a professional athlete or a middle school athlete or someone who's overweight. I just think that it's really good to be versatile and adaptable. And so for that reason, I'd say that it's worthwhile, and that reason alone. Beyond that, for me, I I think that strength conditioning is just the vehicle for being able to impact people's lives in a positive way. And so, I love strength conditioning, and I love to learn about how to optimize what I'm doing. And I like to learn as much as possible about physiology and performance and how those two things are intertwined. But really, what I'm doing within strength conditioning is, again, that's just a vehicle for me to be able to improve help and enhance people's lives and improve well-being. And so I don't know if I've done that, but I think those two reasons alone make it worthwhile venture. And this is obviously sort of a growing field with, everything that you promote. And then beyond that, like the Spartan races. And there's just so much that we don't know about training people who, again, have certain afflictions or disabilities. And I think the more people that do it and find sound, reasonable ways to do it, the more we can advocate for this field and this little niche, and again, advocate for how important it is. And so I think those reasons make it really worthwhile and important for people to train handicapped clients.
Okay, good. That was a great answer. But
I blacked out, James. I have no idea what I said.
this could have fed into what you just said. But if there's a handicapped athlete out there that, like you said, doesn't work out or is fearful because
James,
they're like,
I don't know if you're asking me a question, but I lost the audio. Hold on.
oh, can you hear me now?
I'm sorry. Oh, it's on the.
That's okay. Can you hear me?
I touched the head.
No.
Can you hear me?
Hear you. Sorry about that.
Okay, there we go. There we go. So sorry about that. But if there's a handicapped athlete out there that hasn't worked out and is fearful because they think that the gym and fitness isn't for them, or they don't belong, what would you say? What advice would you give them, to get over that fear or to encourage them?
Well, I don't think that my answer is necessarily geared towards someone who's a handicapped person or disabled, but my brother has the same concerns about, everybody has the same concerns about, working out for the first time. And so Mike Boyle, strength conditioning, he personally has over 35 years of experience. He's worked with everyone. We show that, whether it's through his Instagram, social media account, different ways that he connects with the community and shows people what he's actually doing. But they work with all walks of life, no matter who it is. And so, people worse off or better off before you and after you will go to the gym. And so there's no reason why you can't. And no matter where you're at, the trainers have enough experience and we'll meet you where you are and you'll communicate and you'll figure it out. And whatever you do, whether it's for 10 minutes or 60 minutes or really challenging or not very challenging, they'll find a way to just establish a routine and then progress that each time. And it's just going to be very incremental. And over time, just by being consistent and communicating, you would have progressed way more than you would have ever thought. And so I think that sort of the apprehension that people feel is real, and it's sort of everyone feels that way, not just handicapped people. And so you got to get over that, because the benefits, the results, the adaptations that you receive are
100%
are so worth it. And so I think that you won't experience that until you just do it. And so you sort of have to take my word and your word and people before you who have trained at Boyles or with a strength and conditioning professional, fitness professional. So I think it's very worthwhile to pursue, for sure.
And I think almost that could go for anything in life. There's always going to be fear of the unknown, but sometimes we get so caught up in, we just want to dip our toe in the water. No, we have to jump straight in and kind of figure things out as we go, and whether it doesn't turn out the way that we wanted it to, or it could be a million times better, regardless, in some capacity we will be better because of it. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned from you and everybody over at Mike Boyles, because that's their motto. And the thing is that that whole gym is a community. We're a family, and that's what it's all about. They actually care about the results. They care about you as a person. You know, when you come in the door, they know you by name. They come and shake your hand, give you a hug. But now we won't be able to do that, but that's okay. But we'll still
Soon enough, James.
We root each other on, and that's what it's all about, and that's what I want to kind of preach to, any gym owner out there, or any person going to the gym. You know what? 9 times out of 10, we're so concerned with, oh, this person's bigger than I am, or oh, this person's smaller. You know, they're not looking at you. A lot of people are just focused on themselves. So are you going to let that fear stop you from doing what it is you need to do to better yourself? You shouldn't, because you know what? When you take that plunge, I'm a perfect example of what can happen, and the lifetime friendships and the connections that I've made through Mike Boyles is absolutely amazing. So, Ken, to wrap it up, is there any sort of other wisdom that you can think of off the top of your head that you want to leave the people with?
James, nothing is coming easy off the top of my head these days, being stuck inside. But I would say that no matter what you're trying to pursue, improvement within, if it's training or if it's cognition, reading, whatever it is, you just have to be consistent with it and commit to it and do it often. And so, I think James is a really good example of someone who just committed to training and doing it often and sticking with it and being consistent. I think that the people that are maybe a little apprehensive about training are that way because they think it's too hard, and it really isn't too hard. And if you're doing a sound program or working with a fitness professional, it's not about doing something so extreme or challenging. It's just about finding a way to train and sort of progress each time that you train, but it doesn't have to be tremendously challenging. You just have to be consistent with it. So again, no matter what it is, right now I'm trying to improve my culinary skills, and so I think I just need to be consistent with those and cook dinner often, which doesn't happen a lot around here. So
you mean you're throwing the peanut butter and oatmeal out the window?
I am, yeah. I'm expanding a little bit.
The dry peanut butter and oatmeal is gone?
It's not gone. I'll throw that in the rotation maybe once, twice a week. But I'm scrambling eggs now, James. So.
Whoa, there we go.
I know.
There we go. Kate's got you an easy bake oven, right?
Yeah. I got the crock pot now, James.
There we go. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. Well, Ken, hey, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time out to talk to me and talk to the people and give us some of your wisdom. And best of luck with the rest of the season. Hopefully it gets going, because I know you guys were on your way to getting a ring.
Yeah.
And just stay healthy, man, and know that I appreciate you. And again, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us.
Anytime.